Good evening. Welcome to our council meeting of May 13th. I'd like to, we have a full council right now. The pledge will be led by Councilman Arnold Lopez, invocation by Councilman Mike Andazola. Please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Creator, we thank you for this evening which you have brought amongst us, Lord. We thank you for the blessings that you have given us in this great community. We thank you for our citizens, which are valued. We have a great place where we live and for people to visit and work. We thank our manager. We thank our city clerk, our department heads, all of our employees, and also we support our men and women of the blue. We ask you to be with us tonight, to give us guidance as we make decisions for this wonderful community. And we ask this in our Almighty Creator's name. Amen.
Thank you. Any comments on agenda items? No. Non-agenda items? No. Then we'll close the regular session and reconvene into a public hearing. The public hearing, as required by Arizona Revised Statute Section 42-17104, it's a public hearing, will be held for the purpose of hearing comments from the public on the following items. Number one, Enterprises LLC, that's a Frontier Steak and Spirit Liquor License. And then number two would be the public hearing for rezoning parcel number 102-18-063E from a CMH conventional home district to a C2 highway commercial district. On the first one.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a presentation for a public hearing for the transfer of a liquor license. It's a Series 6 bar application. Application was submitted by Tammy Lynn Sparks on behalf of T2B Enterprises LLC for the new restaurant Frontier Steaks and Spirits located at 1206 East US Highway 70. I did post the announcement on the property on April 24th. And tonight's just a public hearing, so it's open if anybody has any comments in regards to the transferring of the liquor license.
Any comments from the public? Okay, then we'll move on to the public hearing item number 2. That's hearing for the rezoning parcel 102-18-063E from CMH to commercial to highway commercial district.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for the Mayor and City Council to hold a public hearing for the proposed rezoning of Graham County Parcel 102-18063E. This meets strategic city goals of growth and development to pursue infill opportunities. The background, the Planning and Community Development Department is in receipt of a rezone application from Mark Palmer for Graham County Parcel 102-18063E. The rezone request is from the Conventional Manufactured Home District to the C2 Highway Commercial District. And at this time, I will break away a little bit from our CCF, and I will go through the process that any applicant meets in order to get to this point in the procedure. So you'll see that I always have one of these blue folders with me when I present. Inside is a checklist. So we go through this with every case. There's filling out the application, providing neighbors within 150 feet the notice in advance, 1 week advance of their neighborhood meeting. Then they provide those neighborhood meetings to staff. Then we require a public hearing published in the newspaper for the Planning and Zoning Commission. We also post the large rezone posters that you'll see in your council packet. Then the city also sends out a letter to all of the property owners in the 150-foot area. And It is presented to this same form of public hearing for the Planning and Zoning Commission. They then write a recommendation to either approve or deny the zone change to the city council. We then repost for this public hearing, and the neighbors within 150 feet get a letter as well from the city. Then this is presented at the city council public hearing, and then there is an ordinance first read, which is generally on the first night of the public hearing, and then a second read. And then the ordinance does not go into effect until 30 days after the posting requirements. So that's quite a lengthy process that any zone change goes through. And if you have any questions as I work through the rest of the CCF, this evening would be a great time to ask those. So the analysis is the purpose of the zoning district is to provide for commercial uses and services generally maintained in central business district fringe areas where the density of traffic and building area is not conducive to desirable residential living. This district includes heavier commercial establishments intended for highway locations. You'll notice a couple of highlighted categories in the allowed uses. Those are the things that this individual applicant thinks that they would like to pursue. And you'll notice that uses permitted in the C1 zoning district is highlighted, and medical, financial, real estate, religious, construction, and business offices are allowed in C1. So that's in that category. And you'll notice on the next page, dwellings when located above the ground floor, provided the ground floor is designed and used exclusively for commercial purpose. So they would be able to provide for dwellings if they did commercial uses on the ground floor. The next section of the CCNF, you'll notice the neighborhood meeting. So our code, section 1720.020, requires a neighborhood meeting on the rezoning prior to being presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. A meeting notice was mailed to all property owners within 150 feet of the property. The meeting was held March 28th, 2024 at the City Annex, and the applicant notes from this meeting are attached. They generally are attached in your CCNF. One email was received by staff from a neighbor who wasn't able to attend, and that email is also attached. No other response was received. The next section is after the commission holds their public hearing and receives public comment, they will write the written recommendation, which is in your packet. And they recommend approval of this rezone for the following two reasons. The rezone will allow for commercial infill near a state highway, and the rezone will abut other C2 zoning and the previous C1 zone change. The next item in your packet is the map, which is displayed on the projector, and that shows the parcel in question, what it's currently zoned, what the surrounding zoning is, and what we would like to change it to. And you'll notice that the written recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission is signed by the chairperson. In your neighborhood meeting notes, you'll see everyone who attended, what time they had it, any discussion they had, and you will see the email from the neighbor who missed the meeting but wanted to ask a question or two. And then in the photos, you will see the notices that are posted on property for any of these type of public hearings. We will put those large signs up, and then the individual notice is attached. With that, I will stand for questions, and the applicant's representative is here if you have questions for Mr. Jim Palmer.
Anybody have any? I just have a comment. I like what one of the neighbors in that area said. They were happy for it because it'll keep down the dust. I thought that was a good comment. Anybody else?
Mayor, it appears that Mr. Palmer has a display there. I'd hate for him to have created it and not get to show it.
If you'd like to.
First off, my first instructions were from my son to give his apologies for sending the second team to be here with you tonight. I do work for him as his business manager, and last week he was asked if he would be the all-star coach for the Mount Graham Little League All-Stars that are getting ready to go on to districts and state play. And tonight is their tryout / game that they're doing, and he said, "Do you think they'll hold that against me?" I said, "Everybody loves a guy that volunteers for the Little League, so you'll be fine." This shows the same thing that was on your screen, and that is that parcel. The only immediate plans for that are this little square area that is between the hotel and the Jehovah Witness Church that accesses 14th Avenue. And that's where he would like to build a new dental office. He's currently located just catty corner here at 8th and 8th. And they have just outgrown their space. When he first bought it, they grew and they doubled the size of it, and now they have outgrown it again and they need more space, and there really isn't, that office isn't set up to handle any more space. So they would like to build a new dental office, and while they're doing that, perhaps a couple of other rental tenant office spaces. They have had several people express some interest in possibly looking for space to rent for perhaps a law firm, an accounting firm, those kinds of things that would fit right in with what they're doing at their dental office. Long term, they have some thoughts about what they would do with the rest of the parcel that would be accessed off of 8th. And that might include some multifamily housing, but those are or down the road. Right now, the immediate purpose of this is to get a dental office built and be able to accommodate their patients and their caseload and things that they would like to do there. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I think that's a very good move for him. Glad to see it.
I'm glad to see that you guys are looking into multi-family housing units because we have such a shortage. So it's good that it's not just going all commercial.
Yeah, there is a real need for that.
There is. So I'm glad that was one of my concerns is we are taking residential and making it commercial. So I'm glad they're looking at that.
Anything else? Thank you very much for your time.
Very much.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll close the public hearing and reconvene into regular session. Item number 10, Enterprise LLC, the Frontier Steak and Spirits Liquor Store application.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. After having the public hearing, I'm presenting you the request to recommend approval to the State Liquor Board relating to the liquor license transfer of ownership of a Series 6 bar application that was submitted by Tammy Lynn Sparks on behalf of T2B Enterprises LLC for the Frontier Steaks and Spirits located at 1206 East US Highway 70 in Safford, Arizona. And attached is the application that was submitted to the Arizona Department of Liquor Licensing. Can I stand for any questions?
Mayor, I move that we approve the liquor license transfer of ownership to Frontier Steaks and Spirits.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the transfer of the liquor license. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item number 2. It's to approve April 22nd, 2024 council meeting minutes. Everybody have a chance to review them?
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes, Mayor, of April 22nd, 2024.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of April 22nd, 2024. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. The next item, number 3. Waiting to hear this one, the Boys and Girls Club review.
Good evening, Mayor Ortega and council members and Manager Casellas. It's an honor to be here tonight, represent the Boys and Girls Club of the Gila Valley. For those of you that don't know me, my name is James Bryce. I am the current board chair of the Boys and Girls Club. Tonight, we will be giving you our annual report, and we will also be addressing some of the rumors that have been going around about the closure of the club. I know our time is limited, so we will try to be quick and precise, but the club is not closing. That is the end of that rumor. I will be introducing our Executive Director, Brittany Dean, who will be giving our impact report on all the great things that we have done in the past year. And then I will be introducing Denise Waters, the CEO of Tucson Boys and Girls Club. She will be giving our financial report. But first, I'd like to bring you up to speed on where we are and where we got here, how we got here. It's been clear that 2023 was a very, very rough year for the Boys and Girls Club. We had a significant budget shortfall. It was because of this shortfall that it really caused ourselves to look close at what we were doing and how we were running. And luckily, too, we had enough in reserves that we were able to withstand this storm. However, it did bring to light where some of our weaknesses lie and some of the things we needed help with. And it was through this realization and the cooperation with Boys and Girls Clubs of America that we started talks with Tucson Boys and Girls Clubs. So the talks were assistance at first, and as we went down that road, we realized that a merger was our best option. And as of today, we have signed a letter of intent, and we will be merging with Tucson Boys and Girls Club. So I know you're going to have a lot of questions, but I want to let them do their presentation, and then I will come back up and field any questions you have concerning the merger and what you need to know and how we're going to move forward. So at this time, I'd like to bring up Brittany Dean.
Good evening, Mayor Ortega and Council. Our mission is to provide a safe and nurturing environment to enable all young people of the Gila Valley, especially those who need us the most, to reach their full potential as productive, caring, and responsible citizens. From 2023 to 2024, our after-school program served 80 youth members here in the Gila Valley. Majority of those are from the Safford area, so we serve about 63, and 17 from Thatcher. This is for our after-school daily attendance. We serve ages 5 to 18. 5 to 6, we serve about 30. 6 to 9, we serve about 35. 10 to 14, we serve 13, or 10 to 14, we serve 13, and 15 to 18, we serve about 2. Our 2023 summer daily attendance, we served 68 from Safford, 20 from Thatcher, 10 from Pima, and 2 from Solomon. And our operations are from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. We also provide transportation after school Monday through Thursday. We pick up from Safford Elementary and Thatcher Elementary schools. When I came into this position, one thing I wanted to do was just give it a little different look. So during our training, we just painted the walls and gave it a fresh look. So I started off with the first picture, the middle of the process, and then afterwards. This is our Torch Club that we serve 10 to 18-year-olds. They do community service. So here they are helping the Stafford's middle school football team to get jerseys, to raise money for jerseys. They also do their own fundraising. So they put on bake sales, and they are currently doing lemonade sales. Fridays, we take them on adventure days. We visit Discovery Park. And also we took them to the duck ponds. We take them to all the local parks. Our main park that we like to visit is Glen Meadows Park. This is what we provide after school. So we provide power hour, that's homework assistance. And then we have our library, which we do reading activities. We also provide STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And they also get free time as well. We also have a member of the month, so they get to choose what type of toy they like, and it just makes them really happy. So, and we enjoy it. Recently, we provided new computer. We got a grant from FMI and provided new computers to our tech lab, and it's been very successful. It's like one of their highlights of the day. We have holiday activities, so they are here tie-dyeing 4th of July t-shirts. We had a date night where they had a costume contest. They are also eating Thanksgiving lunch after school, and Santa Claus also came and visited us. And our members got to take home a pumpkin patch. Got to take home pumpkins as well. For the past 8 months, we've been fostering a valuable relationship with the Boys and Girls Club of Tucson. During this time, they provided invaluable guidance in our resource development plan. Moreover, their generosity knows no boundaries. They've graciously gifted us 125 bikes, complete with helmets and accessories. Oh, sorry, go back. With their donation, with these bikes, we were able to gift our club members a Christmas gift. So with the partnership with Tucson, they will be able to help us in these various areas, which are facility maintenance, finances, programming, ensuring compliance with BGCA requirements are met, HR support, grant funding, and fundraising. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Next, I'll be calling up Denise Waters. She's going to go over our financials. Before I bring her up here, I'd like to say a little bit about her. You got a little excited. Denise Waters is an accomplished executive in the HR field. She brings over 25 years of experience and a wealth of knowledge in building effective working relationships and partnering with business leaders and stakeholders to ensure the success of the Boys and Girls Club mission. Her resume includes a Fortune 500 company, a law firm, a public relation firm, a financial consulting firm, and small, medium, and large government contractors. The fact that she has dedicated her skills and her talent to the Boys and Girls Club is a tremendous testimony of the mission of Boys and Girls Clubs. She has proven to be a results-driven executive, consistently achieving significant and sustainable results in diverse and demanding environments. The Boys and Girls Club of the Gila Valley is lucky to have her. Mayor Ortega and Council, please welcome Denise Waters.
Good evening. That was a great bio. Mayor, Council, thank you for having me tonight. I have the pleasure of talking about the finances all the way from Tucson. I'm so excited. I hope you are too. I am excited about this merger and this partnership, mainly because I met James and Brittany a little over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and I could see the passion that they have for the youth, and that's the passion that I have for the youth as well. I am from the East Coast. I was born outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland, and I was a Boys and Girls Club kid. And look where I am now. So I'm a testament to what putting the effort into these kids and showing them the door of opportunity is about. I want to talk a little bit about the finances that we've worked with Brittany and her team. Our team in Tucson has looked over these. We've gone over them with your city manager as well. In 2022 to 2023, you can see a little bit of a change here. $65,000 of that was due to minimum wage that increased to $13.85 an hour. We also added a grants writer that was a $50,000 salary. So there's a big jump for about $115,000 there. For the 2024 budget, when it was prepared flat to that, with also some additional change to absorb the changes in minimum wage. For operating costs, we've had some facilities maintenance costs in 2023. We've had some organizational dues to the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and we've had some program costs that have increased that budget. For 2024, we're looking at some special event costs. Got to put some money down to make some money with fundraisers, and we have some program costs that are going to increase that budget. And for the revenue side, these are the areas that we thought would be most instrumental to look at, and we have rolled them up into these. For contributions, we are going to see a net of a $40,000 decrease. We're going to see a $20,000 increase for tax credits. That would be with the tax campaign. $10,000 for in-kind. An increase of $10,000 in fundraising. $180,000 increase from United Way, of which we have secured $95,000 to date with United Way. No increase really to the grant side. We are hoping to put a lot of effort from the Tucson support and infrastructure we have, but we wanted to just keep that about stable and static. Program fees will have a decrease of $5,000. Event revenue, we're hoping, is going to increase at a minimum of $15,000, which is a change of $190,000 overall for the budget for 2024. At this time, I'd like to answer any questions that you might have about the financials or even the merger, if you'd like to talk about that.
You said that the grant writer was a $50,000 annual salary. Is there no longer a grant writer?
Correct. We have eliminated that position, and we are going to be absorbing that with the Tucson infrastructure. We have a full-time grants writer who represents Southern Arizona, and we have a part-time grants writer out of Scottsdale who has written for the Boys and Girls Clubs for over 20 years. So we have 2 personnel that will be dedicated to helping.
Mayor, just a clarification on merger, I guess. Are they becoming a part, our Boys and Girls Club becoming a part of like the Southern Arizona? What's the umbrella?
I think that will be the intention, not immediately. We want to make sure that we have Gila Valley with your name on it and that you stay Gila Valley so that you can continue to really support the Thatcher and the Safford area and community. What we hope to do is help build your board with you and help garner the support to really make this one of the better clubs in Southern Arizona and sustainable. So we will be more of a mentor and guidance. Our board is not going to come to Tucson to become your board. We want to help you really establish your footprint and board and get the right community leaders on that board. But we are going to be able to help from as Brittany shared, we're already helping from a programs perspective. We've already gone through the organizational structure from an HR perspective. We're going to help with the grants. We have a back office accounting, so we can help with that. We also have a strong resource development team. So we have event planning and fundraising, and we're going to really help support Brittany and her team in that regard so that we can serve more kids. That's what it's all about. When it gets down to why we're here and what we hope to do, it's for the mission. We just want to reach more youth and expand. So that's what we're hoping to do.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I do, but the grant writer is no longer here.
Correct.
Did the grant writer get any grants for you?
Yes, he can.
Mayor Ortega, Councilman Arnold Lopez. It wasn't a grant writer, it was a resource development position. So it wasn't just writing grants, it was to find ways to develop funding as far as donors and building relationships. We decided in the end of 2022 that we were willing to put an investment of $50,000 into a position based on return. If it didn't return at least 50,000 plus, then we could use that money elsewhere. To say that it made money would be wrong, but it didn't lose money anyway. That position actually secured a $40,000 donation that we were in jeopardy of losing. It was a donation we receive annually, but we were on the verge of losing it. Had we not had that position, we might not have received that. Things have changed. The budget was really bad, so we had to tighten our belt. So that was a position we had to watch phase away. But like Denise said, we now have support from Tucson. And Mayor Ortega, Councilman Hemphill, it will be a true merger because you can understand as council that we have to preserve the future, whereas boards, right now we have a perfect relationship with staff, but we have to have something that secures that and doesn't just change with the change of a board. So there will, and this has taken a long time because we're trying to make sure we do it right. Boys and Girls Club of America is highly involved. They have a department that is specifically designed for mergers to strengthen small clubs by joining up with larger clubs. So I would love to give you details of legally how that's going to look. We're still working on that. So it will be some type of legal merger, but as Denise said, we are going to retain our identity and make sure that it's still on our shoulders to make sure it's funded. We got to make sure the community supports it or it won't exist.
I kind of want to go back a little ways. You mentioned the computers, which is great. I think, and the kids need them there. Are there safeguards to what they view and what they see?
Absolutely, yes. Child safety is paramount in Boys and Girls Club of America. It's, with all the lawsuits like 4 or 5 years ago, it's gotten even more stringent. And safety from background checks to facilities has become forefront of the workload that our executives have to do now.
And let me just ask this, then what do you expect from Safford, the city of Safford?
We expect what we've always had, a great relationship and a good partnership where you guys have supported us. I can say you're probably our number one donor and by far our first partner. To bless this merger and to accept that we are making the corrections that is needed for the club and to allow us to go forward is what we're asking. I give kudos to you guys for revamping your funding policies to where now we will be applying for a $20,000 grant for badly needed items. And you'll see that come across your desk soon, I'm sure.
Anybody else?
Are you at max enrollment or where are you at for like your monthly enrollments?
That's kind of a Brittany question. And we were just having that conversation right now is why I'm going to answer it, but I'm still going to let her talk. Max enrollment is based on staff. And when you have to do cutbacks, you have to cut back enrollment. So yes, we are at max enrollment right now. We are not at our peak of what we can handle, but we are what we can take in right now. So
And does that cover the summer program that's coming up also?
summer program, we were just talking about that. We were going to cap it at 80, but we're in the talks of capping at 100, and we've always had a waiting list.
Okay.
So if we can make that work, we may have to bring in some volunteers to facilitate field trips because, as I said, we have really tightened the belts and we've cut back on staff. So we can't afford to take staff out of the building now and still have the coverage like we used to. So we may be calling out for volunteers if we want to make that number work.
So,
I've-
Mayor,
I've seen in our budget that we're still working with you in the same amount we always have, so I don't believe that's changed. I don't. Still in the budget as far as I see.
yeah, Mayor, Councilman Lopez, and Council in general, that's correct. And it's one of the reasons that we're here tonight because I didn't know that some of these changes were going on until very recently, or we could have had more conversations as part of our budget process. There were a number of details that we've covered so far, including having our finance director and deputy finance director go over and meet with the Boys and Girls Club to review and compile some of this data for you. Obviously, the population served is critical, right? And we can see that so there's these ideas, and I heard multiple times that the facility may close. In my opinion, that was not an option. And so we started to dig deeper. We had conversations with folks from the United Way. They had some concerns as well. And so we all met together to review exactly what was going on and to try to get up to speed as to the merger, revenues and expenditure patterns. And so we kind of took a little bit of a deep dive, some of which are in these numbers here. And so what I came away with in some of the discussions that we have had is there seems to be a need to really nail down, number one, revenue stream, what can be counted on going forward. Because obviously there's some activities listed, but we need to come up with some actual revenues that people can, run the operation on. So trying to stabilize revenue streams would be one of the things we want to look at. And obviously the customers who use the facility and the area municipalities and governments the kids come from may and should be part of that discussion, in my opinion. And so I think we had some recent successes with things like the Samaritan House, where we got everybody together and had a conversation. That may need to be part of the conversation going forward. We do have a contract with the Boys and Girls Club. We also provide the facility. Now there's been additional work on that facility and a great deal of discussion on the current condition of that facility and what might be needed to get it up to speed. Those numbers are not part of this conversation. But again, if we're looking at a solution for the Boys and Girls Club going forward, it has to be sustainable, right, in its entirety. And so, I've had discussions with the board and with the folks from Tucson and trying to kind of determine what those revenues may be. How do we get more stable numbers in that regard? And then also look on the expenditure side and at the facility and see what it's going to take to get that up to speed and where those numbers will come from. But I think it's going to require some extra people at the table to have that discussion, because whatever we come up with, let's fix it and get it moving forward so that it's a long-term solution. So even looking at these revenue numbers, we're going from 17,800 as an actual to 200,000. And so how do we get there from here, and how do we make that sustainable over time? What are the impacts? Things like the increases in the minimum wage obviously have an impact on the operational costs. current condition of the building and the ongoing maintenance of that are going to be a concern. Our contract does speak to normal day-to-day maintenance. It doesn't look like there's some areas there where we need to look at that because that wasn't going on. In some ways, it's similar to the chamber where capital projects we would take care of, but ongoing maintenance is supposed to be taken care of by those who occupy the facility. And so we charge $10 a year. The way that's not a gift is by them making the contribution to do the maintenance on the facility. So there are a lot of discussions that need to take place going forward. The reason that I asked these folks to show up and give you an update is because it's a significant sea change in where the Boys and Girls Club is going. We are significant participants in that, whether it be our facility or potentially funding it going forward under our new grant application process. So the goal here this evening was to just give you a heads up, if you will, and say there's some significant things going on. Closing the Boys and Girls Club, in my opinion, is not an option. And so I wanted you to be aware that we would be working with them and trying to come up with a long-term solution for the Boys and Girls Club. But I figured at this point, and given the significance and the changes that are ongoing, that you probably should get an update, which is the purpose of the meeting tonight.
I think it was a good meeting, good presentation, and it's just good to see that everybody's getting together, there's discussion, and once that happens, there's a solution to anything.
Right. And just to close with that, I appreciate everything Manager Casella said. He's absolutely right. But I do want to make it clear that we're not here today asking for a bailout. We're not going to be looking at the city of Safford saying, save us. This is the Boys and Girls Club of the Gila Valley, and it will be the Gila Valley that funds this club fully. So, Councilor Lopez, you mentioned that you've been really consistent. You've kept your promises. You've funded our rent payment every year and made sure that we have a facility to be in. There are some issues that are coming up, but what I'd like to make sure that nobody walks away from this meeting tonight thinking that because we brought Tucson in, these issues just came up. These are BGCA issues. We just didn't have the skill set or the ability to recognize them right away. So that's another one of the things. It was in the bullet points. BGCA compliance is paramount. And like I said, safety is on the top of everybody's minds right now. So thank you guys. I know we took up a lot more time than we planned on, but know that we're working hard and we're going to ensure that there is a Boys and Girls Club in the Gila Valley.
I'd just like to say, one other thing. It'd be nice if you would kind of come back, maybe 3 months, 6 months instead of a year. To keep us informed.
Absolutely. Now that we have this out, and so you can appreciate, we wanted to tell everybody a long time ago about what we're doing. But when you have a board that's 2 hours away, 200 miles away, and then ours and BGC, it's a lot of moving parts. So I apologize that we didn't bring you in sooner. In hindsight, it would have been better to have you at the table in the beginning. So we will probably have you at the table in any of the major meetings we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 11, contract agreements and bids. Number 1, property purchase. Assessors parcel number 103-08-250 and 103-09-030. Lance?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for Mayor and Council to approve the purchase of approximately 30 acres of vacant land. Assessors parcels 103-08-250 and 103-09-030, owned by La Tierra Development LLC, located east of 8th Avenue and Graveyard Wash along the 26th Street alignment. This land purchase would benefit the city for future extension of 26th Street to the east and potential recreation and cemetery expansion areas. Little background analysis. Staff had discussions with La Tierra Development about the potential interest in selling the subject property, and the interest was there, but no value was determined. Therefore, staff hired Baker Peterson, Baker and Associates to complete an appraisal of the property. That appraisal report came back with a value of $490,000, or roughly $16,500 per acre, for the 2 parcels totaling 29.63 acres. Staff had discussions with La Tierra Management and thoroughly evaluated the appraisal and came to an agreement that the appraised value was reasonable considering there are currently no physical access or utilities available to the property. Staff is recommending purchase of the approximate 30 acres of vacant land located east of 8th Avenue and Graveyard Wash along the 26th Street alignment for $16,537 per acre, $490,000 plus closing costs and recording fees. Funds have been budgeted in the FY 24-25 CIP specifically for the purchase of this property. But perhaps if closure happens before July 1st, 2024, then the funds required for the purchase of this property would come from the 23-24 general fund reserves with contingency funds used to cover the expenditure. Any questions?
And if it doesn't happen by June, like you said, we're in a position to absorb that impact?
I've had discussions, and more likely we won't close till in July, just to make things easy. Nobody's in a rush on this. We'll just wait till July. We'll have a budget. This is basically proving it that we use the funds in July in the 24-25.
Okay, that'd be great.
No more discussion. An action item.
Mayor, I move that we approve the property purchase of assessors parcel numbers 103-08250 and 103-09030.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of the property. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. We'll move on to item number 12, resolution. Resolution R24-015, amending the deposit policy.
Mayor, Council, Troy Bingham, your Finance Director. I'm bringing forward seeking your approval for Resolution R24-015 for revision to Safford's deposit policy to provide clarity on the utility account application and deposit requirements. So a little bit of history on this is it started back at the beginning of this year. Public comments have come in and talked about our deposits and the onerous nature of spousal deposits. So we started our research at that point, looking at the various laws that govern our deposits, either our policy or our code. So tonight, what we have before you is a resolution with 4 recommendations, and I'll break them up into 4 different spots, and we'll talk about each one. So the first one starts with that original thought back in the beginning of the year, was looking at the spousal requirements for deposits. So when we were doing our research, we looked at the policy, and the policy talked a lot of spouses. So what the first thing we did is just generalize the policy. Instead of talking about spouses or marital relationships, we just talk about applicants. So the policy now just refers to applicants rather than spouses and marital partners. And then we took out the requirement for each renter. So regardless of if you were applying for a new application for a property, everybody in the property had to be on the application. Now it just says whoever's applying, that is who we're going to check to make sure that their social security number matches their name, and that we're going to check their credit risk. So that was one of the changes. And then we added language in there because you could read the policy in various directions and get different interpretations of it. So just to be very, very clear, we added a section about account ownership and responsible to whom they are lawfully married. So in the case of a spouse who you are lawfully married to, the account can be passed without doing any deposit, but we're still going to check to make sure that your social security number matches up and that we have enough information to track you. So that is the change, the first recommendation we're making that will address that first spousal question that came up early this year. The second one was, as we presented this at the beginning of April, I brought to you some analysis on collection efforts in our utilities. So we collect about $3.2 million every month in utility fees, and of that, a small portion of that goes past due and goes into collections after they're locked out of their utility. So I showed you those collections were on the rise, and so one of the recommendations that I would like to make tonight is the fact that we would address that The first thing that when we were talking about that was the idea that commercial was treated different than residential. Commercial deposits were kept for the perpetuity of the account. There was a chance to get back a third of it in the policy, but we looked at that language. What are your directions at that when we tabled that first attempt to change the policy was to go back and look at the commercial deposits. So one of the things dictating the commercial deposits was the actual code. The code required that we paid interest on commercial deposits because of that idea of perpetuity, that we were keeping the accounts for longer than a year. So the first thing we have done, and you'll see later tonight, is last council meeting, we addressed the code section where it required interest, and we've struck that language from the code. So later on tonight will be the second read of that, and that'll be required so that deposits for commercial and residential are treated exactly the same. And then in this new policy, we are taking out the language that we get back 1/3 after 1 year of good payment history, and now we're going to the same thing as residential. If you have 1 year of good payment history, we're willing to give back your full deposit. But for commercial, the one thing is you have to have 3 years of good payment history. So there will be a little bit of a differentiation. The reason for that is we believe that businesses either fail or succeed in that first 5 years, and so 3 years is a good compromise to make sure that if your business is going to fail, we make sure that we have a deposit for the first 3 years, and then year 4 and 5, that would definitely be a risk that we'd be taking. But again, we haven't seen those kind of losses when it comes to commercial. So we feel that we can make a change to the commercial deposit by striking the need to have interest on the account, because we're not keeping it forever now, but we are keeping it for 3 years. And then after 3 years, it would be refunded only upon good payment history. So that's another recommendation for tonight. The other one is the past due accounts. So residential, as I pointed out to you, we saw a rise of collections, and the effort to collect those was minimal. We get about 13% of what we try to collect. So in an effort to kind of abate that, one of the recommendations we're making tonight is to remove any ambiguous language in the policy. The policy talked about if it could either be a certain set amount or it could be 1.5 times your highest month. So in an effort to try to just let's get to set amounts, we are taking out the language about 1.5 times your greatest month, and just going to those set deposit amounts. So, and then a recommendation we're making on those set deposit amounts is that gas and electric have become a little bit more expensive due to the cost of gas and electric. The cost has gone up over the last few years. So we feel that we need to increase the deposit $25 for those two types of accounts. Water and sewer would remain the same, no recommendation there. But for electric and gas, we feel that we go from $75 deposit to $100 deposit. And that'll better secure us. If the account does go past due, it will cover some of the bill. So that is our third recommendation. And then the last recommendation is we just went through all of the code and all of the policy. There's a lot in there that's not policy. It's a lot of procedure that's in the policy document. So we felt this was a good opportunity to take a lot of that out and to just stick to what is policy, what is staff direction, so that there is no ambiguous language throughout the policy. So the last recommendation is to generally clean up the policy by removing ambiguous language, striking procedure wherever it's in there, and just sticking with true policy. And those are our 4 recommendations. Hopefully that's enough information for you, and I turn the time back over to Mayor and Council.
No?
Mayor, just a comment. This has been one of the areas where we've seen some of the biggest complaints from the public, so I really appreciate the work that's gone into cleaning this up. I think we'll be better served going forward with these changes.
Councilmember.
You used the right word, cleaning it up, simplifying it. Good job. Anybody else?
Now, we had plenty of discussion on this, and it looks like you've gotten there. And you've added $25 to the gas and electric, but I understand why you did. And are you the one moving this display
Yes.
up there? Okay. I'm still learning this one. I'll make sure. No, I appreciate what you've done here, Mr. Bingham.
Anybody else? An action item?
Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution R24-015, amending our deposit policy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution R24-015. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. number 2, Resolution R24-017, designating bank representatives and signers for the city of Safford.
I need to read
Oh,
the
yeah, I'm sorry.
resolution in.
Go ahead.
Sorry. This completes the approval resolution number R24-015, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, amending resolution R18-017 that was adopted May 14th, 2018 for the attached amended policy establishing more current deposits for utility customers.
Thank you. We'll move on to R24-017.
Mayor, council, this is me requesting mayor and councils to adopt R24017, a resolution designating certain city staff as banking representatives and signers for the banking services. As you can see in my staff memo, it talks about in 2016 was the last time that they actually passed a resolution like this. Banks over the last few years, it was about 2018, they started requiring official documents like this from boards designating people that can actually sign on an account. So we were repeating that same document that was done in 2016 with new staff members. As you can see, they've all changed at the city. The fire department has not changed. They are still the same people there, and we're just recertifying those. But this resolution allows us to open accounts. It allows us to modify accounts. It allows us to correct any existing accounts out there. So when I got here in earlier this year, we first started with the audit, and now we're on to the bank accounts. So this is a treasury function that we're trying to clean up. And this resolution allows me and my staff and members of the city to act for and in behalf of the council to clear up some of these treasury activities that have happened over the last few years. Turn the time back over to mayor and council.
I think you also need to fix the fire department. Mr. Goodman is retired.
Oh, last time when we started this, he was still there. Has it been a while?
He retired in March.
Okay, that's explained.
Is there checks on this? Checks and balances?
Correct. So we have controls mayor and vice mayor. We have controls related to all of these bank accounts. This is just setting signers. How we disperse funds or how we write checks are all internal controls that we wouldn't discuss it at a public meeting, but we do have those in place that no one single person can act alone of these 5.
Exactly what I was asking.
Any other? Not item?
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution R24-017 designating bank representatives and signers for the city of Safford.
Second.
Motion and second to approve resolution number R24-017. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
This completes the approval resolution number R24-017, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, designating depositories and person authorized and sign related documents and agreeing to certain conditions with banking institutions.
Item number 3, resolution R24-018, designating bank representatives and signers for the city of Safford for the local government investment pool.
Mayor, council, I'm requesting adoption of R24018, a resolution designating certain staff as banking representatives and signers for banking services at the LGIP, which is the local government investment pool. The reason this may feel like deja vu, we just had an item that would open up any account. The local government investment pool requires a specific resolution for only them. So they require their own resolution that I cannot use that previous one that you have passed. So this resolution mirrors the exact same one, except for no need for firefighter pension related activity. This is just for the LGIP. The city has about $30 million currently invested in the LGIP. So this would allow us to get access to that and move that if necessary.
It does say here that to execute transfers for and behalf of all accounts of the LGIP. So does that mean any one of you could go to the bank and initiate a wire transfer?
So this, again, similar controls on this account like all other accounts. There's no single person that can do any activity at the city of Safford.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Anybody else have any? If not, it's an action item.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution R 24-018. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
This completes the approval of resolution number R 24-018, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, authorizing persons to sign related documents and agreeing to certain conditions with the local government investment pool.
Thank you. We'll move on to number 4, Resolution R 24-019, City of Safford Investment Policy. Wait again.
Mayor, council, so all of these items relate. So we first started with the general bank account. We now started with a local government investment pool that has our current investments in it. So now we want to provide guidance to staff and how we would talk about investing funds and why cities should invest their funds. What we've looked at prior to me arriving here at the city of Safford, prior finance directors had started this process of researching what was applicable in the state of Arizona and other cities and towns that have similar policies, and they were able to create a policy or find a similar policy out there that would fit City of Safford. So I've just taken it to the finish line. So I have to give credit to where credit's due to previous finance directors that had started this process but never officially finished it. But tonight I'm looking for your approval of a resolution to create an investment policy so that our one and only investment is not local government investment pool, which is a great investment. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight. So, come on, there it goes. So why the need for an investment policy? So there's 4 different types of risk that the city of Safford faces when it has money in any bank account. There's market risk. The market is changing all the time, right? You see on the news, the Fed makes calls out there that change the market. It could be the economy has changed. Everything is changing. So investments are not a static return for the city of Safford. Sometimes they can be minimal. Sometimes they can be large. Interest risk, meaning that certain types of investments, bonds, have certain types of interest returns on them. Given the risky nature of the bond or the risky nature of the investment, you could have better returns on certain types of instruments, and you could have less desirable returns on certain types of investments. So having a diversified portfolio where you're not just in one thing, where you feel the effects of that one market are important when looking at an investment policy. Credit risk. This just means that the investment that you get in will actually pay out. There is risk in the market. Anytime you move above federal insurances or anything like that, you face risk in the market. So there's certain types of investment that the city needs to not be in that would protect any sort of investment we make out there and make it secure. And this state of Arizona has laws that protect cities and towns. You can't go into very, very risky investments. A lot of what we're showing you tonight is generally government-backed and secured by some sort of loan or federal agency. So, but there is different types that we can talk about, and they all have different types of risk. Liquidity risk, you don't want to put all of your money 5 years into the future. If you need that money tomorrow, if we pass this capital investment plan or investment policy that requires us to use a large amount of money, we want to have that money available. So we have to look at the liquidity of how much money do we have now, how much money are we going to have over the next 5 years, and invest accordingly. You wouldn't put it all into one investment. It may be a really great investment, but it would lock up your funds. You won't be able to use them. So you don't want to do that also. Moving on. Come on. Going backwards. All right. So on the left here, you'll see what the state actually allows in the state of Arizona from a municipality. You can invest in U.S. treasuries, government agencies, municipal bonds, corporate bonds, commercial paper, brokered CDs, and money market mutual funds. All of these investments are pretty well secure. Either they're backed by the U.S. government or they have high quality, meaning that someone has gone in and done an audit. There's a market rate analysis that gets done by those companies, and they have a A or better, which is lower than actually the city of Safford. So one of the recommendations that I'm making in our policy is that we would take that policy from the state and be a little bit more stringent. And where we'd be a little bit more stringent is in the corporate bonds, where they allow a single A rating. We wouldn't allow a rating that's lower than the city of Safford. The city of Safford is currently a AA rating. So why would I want to invest in something that's lower than us? So I always want to invest either in AA or higher. So that would be one of the restrictions that would be more than what the state puts on any town or city. Brokered CDs. This is another, as I came from in my career, I worked in a small locality in Virginia. One of the things that local banks don't get enough credit for is having enough funds flow through their actual local bank in your community. So it's allowed under the state to do brokered CDs, so I can buy any CD around the United States. But what I would like to do is focus, whenever we do buy CDs, is on our local banks. We have 4 local banks that we would like to put in the maximum amount to invest in their local bank, just to show activity there. So as citizens of Safford have an opportunity to continue banking at those places, and they're not looking to remove their shop or consolidate their branches, because they see activity at their local branch. And so we can use the funds that the city of Safford has to keep that active, and they're totally insured by the FDIC or the NCUA. We're not going to go above those limits, but this also allows, part of this policy is us coming back every year and telling you how the investment structure is going. One of the things we can get out there is what rates are you seeing in your local community? So local people can make those investment decisions based on what the city of Safford's getting. We're not getting any special deal over and above what they would be getting. So we can kind of advertise for these local banks and communities, and I think it helps out. So one of the things, like I said, all of our investments right now are currently in the LGIP. It's not a bad investment. It's earning 5.35%, or what they commonly refer to as 535 basis points. That's a pretty good return. After the 2008 crash, most investments were earning 50 basis points. So 5.35% is a great return, and it's a great time to be in the LGIP, right? We're getting the most money we can get for our funds. But as you can see, the LGIP, they've graphed it over the last, it looks like 13 years, it's volatile, meaning that sometimes it has ups, sometimes it has downs. If you don't have an investment policy that goes outside of the LGIP, you're going to feel those ups and downs. What you can do with an investment policy is when the market's good like this, you can invest in things that have similar returns, but they have longer duration. Meaning we could go 2 or 3 years out, not feeling that fall as quickly as you would see on the LGIP. So an investment policy allows us to get out of that roller coaster and get into something a little bit more stable. I think I've covered that. So the other thing is not having all of our investments into one thing. The LGIP is a great thing. It's totally backed by the state of Arizona. There's no risk of loss in the LGIP. But what we want to see is breaking up our investments, the amount of money we have available to actually invest. So we need to create a treasury activity here in the city, and those resolutions that you've just passed for me allows us to start contemplating how much money do we keep in our checking account to pay the bills, and how much money do we have for investment, and maximizing those investments to the highest dollar amount. But what you do in an investment policy is create a ladder, meaning that I create multiple investment types. I'm not just putting it all in brokered CDs or treasuries. I'm creating different types of investments because they all have different risk and different returns, but they're also variable throughout the duration, meaning I'm not putting it all into 1 year's investments or 2-year investments. It's going to be a variable amount, and it's the same amount every month. So we're making decisions every month for liquidity purposes on what's available that we have for checking account and what's available for investment, and trying to keep that maximum investment out there in the market. It takes a lot of effort, and we don't really have that set up right now, but this investment policy will be the first steps in creating that. So the last thing is investment maturities. Again, just talking about the idea that future obligations, we have a CIP for 5 years that we put before you guys. We only vote on that for 1 year. So 1 year is really in the budget, but we have to plan on those cash flows over the next 5 years. So one of our things is to sit down and figure out what we have available to us, what we can really invest, how much needs to be in the checking account, and then come up with something that would match that so that we have that liquidity when we need it. So cash flow analysis is on us as staff to figure that out. But we do have help in the market. I'm no way an investment guru. I have every finance director job I've had in the past, I've always had assistants. And Morton Investments is one of those companies that you find in local government. They have many clients. One of their clients is the city of Thatcher and the county. So they reached out to us and they said that they could help us with this strategy and coming up with the duration. And the person is Corey McKendrick, who has reached out to us, and we plan on engaging his services. How they get paid is not through any sort of check from the city. They get paid on every investment that they offer to the city. So they're going to offer an investment with a small margin on it, that's how they get paid. So we don't have to take their investment. We could always go with our own. We could find Chase Bank, could buy the same investment, but having these guys in the background giving us advice on where in the market is good, when corporate paper is good, when CDs are good. So giving us that advice and getting our ladder strategy together is what Corey would help us with. So this investment policy was taken, all these slides were taken from Corey's presentation to us as staff, and so I just wanted to make it sure that I shared the equal credit to the idea of investing in the city of Safford with his company. So Morton Capital Investments. So I turn the time back over to Mayor and Council. Sorry for the long.
I'd just like to make one comment myself. I really appreciate the credit rating. They were, we're not going to go somebody with a worse, lower one than us. I never would have thought of that. Great. And then investing locally. I think wherever we can, I think that's also
Spare.
very good. Anybody else? Go ahead, Dusty.
Sorry, kind of my jam.
It is.
I do investments. They do get commissions depending on what you go into, so I want us to be very cautious of that. But I do want to know, like, what type of investments are we looking at? Because, of course, we both understand that the market goes up, down, and sideways, and I can understand the one that you talked about that's paying the 5.35. That's basically a money market. So with that, so they are going to be getting paid fees, but what is his commitment to us based on that?
So the first question, Mayor, Council member, is what would we be investing in? That's the slide that I presented here. It's the items on the right. So any of those items on the right that would present an investment opportunity equal or somewhere around the LGIP would be our current strategy. I don't want to go below that. I guess, again, in the first year, that's a 1 year look at the market. But if we can go 5 years out and have a little bit lower, but a guaranteed 4% return, we'd also be looking for that. So again, not knowing what our possibilities are and what they're out until we start talking to Corey fully, and we have to engage him as a firm, that's where we can see what our opportunities are. But again, we'd be taking advantage of the high point of the market right now, we believe, and investing in those things that would get us duration out to 4 or 5 years. Does that help answer that one question?
Yeah.
And then how are they paid? We're aware of the commissions, but again, we'll evaluate it based on what the final number is to the city of Safford. Again, if they're offering a 5.35% CD and they're selling it to us at 5.33%, that 5.33% is how we'll evaluate it. That's what the city of Safford will get as an actual return outside of their commissions. And if I can go get that at some other place, I can get a better rate at a local CD, we'll go to the local CD.
So it's not just going to be exclusive to him. Like,
No,
you're
'cause
willing
Chase-
to open it up.
Chase Bank offers similar services, but they don't offer the advice and counseling that their company would offer. So we still have the opportunity to go and to somebody else. They just offer that advice that you don't typically get in the industry.
If Corey's not doing the investing in changes, then you would be? You
So-
said it could be monthly, and it was a lot of work.
So when I say Corey gives us advice, he has no access to our bank accounts or what we move and what we don't move. Ultimately, the actual movement happens between those 5 people that you approved in your banking resolution. That would be a sit down between the clerk, myself, my deputy, and city manager and or the mayor at some point in time to talk about this investment policy and what it looks like.
We're not obligated to any certain time frame?
Nope. So all investments in the state of Arizona have to stay under 5 years. You can't go out longer than 5 years.
No, I mean, our obligation with working with the Corey gentleman.
Nope, there is no duration or time policy with him.
If nobody else, then it's an action item.
Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution R24-019, the City of Safford Investment Policy.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution R24-019. All in favor? Opposed? Carries B.
This completes the approval of resolution number R24-019, a resolution of the Council of City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, adopting the City of Safford investment policy.
We'll move on to number 5, resolution R24-020, resolution dissolving the airport debt service reserve account. Again, Troy.
Mayor and council, I'm requesting the mayor and council approval on a resolution R24-020, a resolution dissolving the airport debt service reserve account. So in our research of cash at the city of Safford, we discovered that there was a bank at there was an account at National Bank that has some funds in it that was established, we believe, during the time of the Airport Authority. They did have debt at that point, and debt service reserves are typical when you have debt accounts. So any debt at the airport has been paid off since 2021. So we no longer feel the need to designate these funds at that bank. Again, the previous banking resolutions would allow us to move the funds. This is just formally getting the idea out that there is no airport debt service reserve or a need for an airport debt service reserve.
Now you want to be part of the general fund.
So logically, we would move the money into the general account, which it was already part of the general fund. It was just a designation. So a nuance in accounting, but yes.
The general account, but the airport would still keep that money?
So the allocation of funds happens during the budget process. So as you approve a budget for airport, that's how airport earns its funds. There is no specific account that we keep for any one of our departments.
So they lose their money?
One would say it was already accounted for.
Okay. And you couldn't find the documents on any of this, huh?
We went to the bank, we went to the minutes, B searched high and low. We do not know why it was created. We only can make inferences.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been doing a lot of house cleaning tonight.
Anybody else?
I'll make the motion that we approve resolution R 24-020, resolution dissolving the airport debit service reserve account.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution R 24-020. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries B.
This completes approval of Resolution R 24-021, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, setting forth the tentative, oh, sorry, I am reading the wrong one.
Wrong one.
I apologize. Let me try that again. This completes approval of Resolution R 24-020, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, hereby dissolving the airport reserve account.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on to resolution R 24-021. That's the fiscal year 2024 to 2025 tentative budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for Mayor and Council to approve Resolution R 2421, adoption of the City of Safford's fiscal year 24-25 tentative budget. Listed below or on your screen are the strategic goals. The background: Arizona Revised Statutes requires the city to prepare and adopt a balanced budget annually for each fund on or before the third Monday in July. City staff has been developing the budget since late August to ensure the city meets all elements of Arizona Revised Statute, City Code, internal policies, and generally acceptable budget practices. The City Council is scheduled to approve the final 24-25 budget on June 10th, 2024, with the passing of the tentative budget tonight. Over the past several months, staff has presented to Council the various elements of the 25 budget, including the following: strategic goals, capital improvement plan, departmental budgets, review and revenue and fund balance forecasts. Upon City Council's approval of the 24-25 tentative budget, the approved budget documents will be published in a general circulation newspaper for 2 weeks, as per Arizona Revised Statutes. In addition, the city will publish a notice that it includes the date, place, and time of the combined final budget to be held on June 10th, 2024. Staff will be requesting adoption of the final property tax levy at the council meeting to be held on June 24th, 2024. I'm not going to go through all this analysis because it's in my presentation, but one of the things I do want to point out that it isn't in my presentation is that the council may make a motion to amend the tentative budget without specific supplemental additions. A few amended motions that were suggested include the tentative budget without the addition of the human resources specialist, without the funding of management training, without the addition of both the specialist and the management training. So without further ado, I'm going to get into my presentation.
And just before we move on, understand as well, you can make changes that you want. Those were the two that had come up previously, but you can make other changes as well.
Any questions before I begin? So we're here tonight to seek approval of Resolution R2421, a resolution adopting the city's tentative budget. Your packet tonight includes all statutorily required schedules as well as internal budget worksheets to assist you and the public understand our sources of and uses of funds by department and program. We'll not be going through the entire document tonight, but can certainly answer any questions you or the community may have on any of those scheduled documents. First, I'd like to remind you what the City of Safford vision is, as was presented in our budget workshops. The vision of the City of Safford is to serve as a catalyst for our community in creating an engaging environment that will produce a high quality of life, including a robust economic climate that encourages business development, a culturally rich and vibrant downtown corridor that emphasizes community, events, and cultural heritage, and the creation of diverse recreational opportunities with an emphasis on activities that utilize the natural climate and beauty of our region. Along with our vision, I'll also remind us of our strategic goals. First, we have quality of life, infrastructure development and maintenance, financial management, growth and development, intergovernmental cooperation, legislative advocacy, business relations and development, use of technology, public information and outreach, human resource management. Building Safford's budget is done in alignment with the community's needs, council's policy directives, and in conformance with state statutes. Adopting the tentative budget establishes the expenditure limit for the FY 2025. The budget included in the meeting packet includes the transactions previously discussed with the City Council during multiple work sessions, as well as outcomes of council's approval of budget-related matters during regular meetings. The process to develop the budget began in August and involved all departments preparing estimates to deliver quality services to the community per council's policy directives. Finance and city management performed a line item review to ensure we are funding what is necessary to maintain operations and add capital projects to meet the city's needs. We provided the City Council a detailed review of estimated revenues, economic outlook, operating budget requests by department and staff's estimates of capital improvement projects, and supplemental requests for FY25 over the past few months. I will provide you an overview of the tentative budget for your consideration and approval. Again, once the tentative budget is approved, we cannot exceed its limit. Staff is recommending a total budget of $102,732,021, which is $24 million more than last year and includes $13 million in contingency appropriations. Last year, the contingency appropriations were $8 million. $7 million. Some of the major assumptions with our budget this year were in expenditures, we had a healthcare premiums increase of 4.99%. We had a cost of living adjustment that was approved by council at 3.2%. Performance-based merit that was also approved. A Christmas bonus up to $500 full-time and up to $250 part-time. We have a MASA ground and air ambulance plan that we've added to our budget, as well as an employer-paid dependent life. For revenues, we have no tax or new fee increases. General fund, approximately 70% is locally generated through transaction privilege tax, and that remains strong. State shared sales tax, which is trending with local revenue, vehicle license tax, which remains flat, and then our property tax, which we had a public hearing on Thursday that will remain flat at 0.5135. HERF funds saw a reduction year over year, and then also this does not reflect any proposed legislation or state budget decisions. In enterprise funds, commodity prices are decreasing.
Okay, that added food tax, that's been put to rest. It's not facing us no more.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, in this current legislative session, there hasn't been any bill that has made it to a point in which it could affect us with the food tax.
And Mayor and Vice Mayor, I had a chance to talk with Senator Gowan, and what was interesting is that he had alluded to the fact that our discussions when they came down and did the tour resonated with him, and so they took to heart our concerns over the food tax. So the reason I bring that up is it's something that we've added, and so it had the intended effect, at least with our delegation.
Yeah, that's part of your highlights is increasing our contact with our legislatures, legislative body and stuff, and it does help. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Additionally, we have some budget highlights. The City Council reviewed the 5-year CIP as well as departmental budgets during several work sessions over the past few months. Here are some of the highlights from those discussions and actions. We have operating budget, including service level increases to community via supplemental additions and a human resources specialist, a facility maintenance worker, street maintenance worker 2. We have the addition of a part-time airport operations officer, journeyman lineman, a seasonal water resource operator. We have the position reclass of a public works administration administrative assistant to the public works director to a office supervisor. And then we also have a library adult education instructor. Additionally,
And you still guys don't want to put in that full timer for the landfill.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, at this point, as we have been discussing our rate study analysis, 2 of the individuals at the landfill are currently funded in the general fund and are overseen by finance. We would like to move those folks so that the oversight is done by those at the landfill. In order to do that, we have to pay their salary, and so I would request that we wait until after the rate studies are done and they reflect that movement, and then we can revisit the part-time employee and see if we want to reclass them as full-time.
And that's the person at the gate, not making them full-time?
I believe they're in the scale house.
Mayor, Vice Mayor,
Scale house.
the 2 positions that you're referring to, one is a full-time and one is a part-time, and there are the landfill customer service representatives. Those 2 positions currently reside in customer service, which is an internal service. Before I moved into finance, those positions were reporting to the business administrator. I didn't see, or he came to me and he approached me and said that those positions really should report to the landfill supervisor. We made that change in terms of reporting. They still fall under the internal service fund customer service. It is our goal to get those positions moved to the landfill, but with those positions also come the costs of the personnel. The landfill fund needed a rate study in order to support the position costs that go with that. And so that is something that when we have these rate study talks with whoever we choose to do the rate study, that will be something we convey to them, is that those 2 positions will be additions.
It's a big old long no.
To clarify for me, it sounds like we need to see if we need to charge more at the landfill in order for them to absorb those 2 positions, which currently are in a different, they're in finance, they're being paid for out of finance.
Correct. That technically they're being paid for as an internal service fund to all of the departments that utilize them.
The employees that, I don't know all the names of all of them, the ones you first meet when you go pay your bill, aren't they requesting a part-time to go full-time?
That is correct.
Okay, and
The scale house.
Yeah, and that's the only department that we don't have any turnover in. Haven't had any turnover in quite some time that I believe. Them ladies their face I see all the time. They're steady. They need help.
Unfortunately, we did have turnover recently.
Oh,
In
recently.
that, yeah, just recently. And to that point, Vice Mayor, that is one of the positions that we do hire in, and you see a lot of those landfill customer service representatives actually move into full-time customer service representative positions at City Hall. So they are very valuable. They do learn a lot out there because they're by themselves doing it all by themselves out there. So
So,
to your point, yes,
so I'll finish my argument, but I had it, okay?
Additionally, besides those FTE positions, we had a capital improvement budget total of 95 million over the next 5 years. The FY 24-25 total was 43.6 million. Of that 43.6 million, 18.4 of that is grant funded, grant or loan funded. Now we're going to get into one of the state forms, which is the main one, which is Schedule A. This is required by Arizona for us to submit these state forms to them. It's at first glance, it is a lot of data and a lot of lines and kind of cumbersome. So the main thing that we want to focus on is down in the bottom right-hand corner, which is that 102-736-021. And that is our FY25 expenditure limit for the city if we pass the tentative budget. That is not what we can go to, but that is what the budget total is. And so with that, I'll go to the next slide, and that will kind of summarize. So this is our past 5 years, including what the expenditure limitation is. And so I talked about what our current budget is and then what our expenditure limitation is, and that can be kind of confusing, I know. So if we look at going from 21 to what our tentative budget is now, that is what we pass as a budget. So that 61.3 million all the way to our 102.7 million is what we pass. The 125 million is what we submit a report that says, here's what you're legally allowed to spend up to. That doesn't mean that we spend up to that much, but if we set a budget, that's the highest that we can go. Tonight, we're asking for a tentative budget of $102.7 million, which is well below that 125 million expenditure limitation set by the state. Does anybody have any questions on that?
I'm still with it. It went up 24 million. That's the one that's still,
We'll get into that. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So let's look at the total city budget. We have the enterprise fund, which makes up 50 million of it. The general fund, which makes up 30 million. We have a contingency of 13 million. And then you have your special funds, which includes your HERF and your grant funded departments. You also have debt service, which is our long-term debt to finance capital projects with long useful lives and short-term debt. So first, we're going to dive into the general fund. So of that slice that we just saw, the general fund, we have personnel, capital, O&M, transfers out, debt service, and internal service around the pie chart. So as you can see, currently in this year's budget, we have kind of an anomaly where capital makes up the bulk of general fund. It's not typical that you see a large capital budget in the general fund. Typically, you see personnel being the largest portion of that. And if you take out capital, the personnel portion would be about 40% of that total budget. As you see here with the capital in, it's about 24%. So as we see, personnel makes up 8.6 million. Capital projects, we have a large capital improvement plan for 24-25 in the general fund. One of those large projects is the park that we have on 8th and Discovery. And so that's why it's at 14.3 million. And that makes up a large portion of that 24 million year over year change is our capital projects this year. Kind of to that point, we see an increase of about $14 million year over year in capital projects. So of that 24 million, 14 million of that is capital projects. Any questions on any of the other categories in the general fund? If not, we'll go back to that slice and then we'll dive into the enterprise funds. So the enterprise funds budget, this includes your sanitation, landfill, water, wastewater, gas, electric. And so here we have a large capital part of the budget. This is typical for enterprise funds. They usually have a large portion of their budget being capital projects. As you can see, 51% of the enterprise funds total 50 million is capital budget or capital projects. Then you have personnel at 4.8, a small debt service of 1 million. O&M is also a large portion at 14.5 million. And then you have internal services at 2.6 million, and then transfers out. This includes to the cemetery perpetual care fund, streets, and then also there's general fund cost allocation services that take place. Any questions on the enterprise funds? Finally, we'll look at one of our special revenue funds, which is HERF. Their total budget is 6 million. Of that 6 million, 3.9% of that, or 3.9 million of that is capital projects. So again, kind of keeping in kind with the enterprise funds, a large portion of their budget typically is the capital improvement plan. Infrastructure is something that these funds maintain, and it costs a lot of money to maintain those projects. Any questions on streets? Kind of a different way to look at personnel. Our FY 25 personnel costs are 16.44 million across all funds. So in the previous three slides, we identified the portion of each fund by expense type. If you recall, the general fund had the largest portion of its overall budget dedicated to personnel. And then this chart helps us drive the point home by showing 65% of the city's overall personnel budget is borne by the general fund. On the right, you'll see the distribution of our personnel expenses by expense type. We have wages and salaries that make up 69%, and then the other expenses followed by healthcare at 15%. Now that we have talked about the expense side of our house, we should spend some time discussing how we plan to pay for the budget. This slide identifies available resources for each of the major fund types. Available resources include fund balance and estimated revenue for FY25. This is summarized on Schedule A with the detail provided on Schedule C. As a reminder, the general fund is used for most of the direct government services to the community, including police, parks, community development. Special revenue funds are restricted for the purposes received, such as grants, and HERF and enterprise are our business type activities. Identifying available resources does not mean we are seeking to use them all. We are seeking to appropriate 102 million for specific expenditures out of the 143 million in available resources. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, so as we see here, we have 48 million in available resources in the enterprise funds. We have 45 million available in the capital projects funds, 6.8 in the fleet internal service fund, and then we have 25 million in general fund, another 16 million in special revenue fund, and then the 25,000 is the library trust, which is a permanent fund. Any questions? This is a familiar slide. We looked at this when we went over revenue and fund balance. So this chart summarizes the discussion regarding our general fund revenue. It compares our largest component of general fund starting from the left bar, which is the 2024 budget, and then you have the 2024 projected, and then you have a 2025 estimate. As we talked about previously, you can see that our local sales tax is on the rise and is projected to do so in 25. Our state shared income, we talked about how there was legislation that passed 2 years prior that made it so there was a bump, and now there will be a decline. As we project out further, though, we see that it will increase from that point. State shared sales tax is also on the rise, as we see with local sales tax. That is projected to increase. Our franchise fees, which go off of the revenue that we gain from our enterprise funds, that is projected to increase slightly just based on use. State shared VLT remains flat, and our property tax also remains relatively flat. That brings our general fund revenues up to $19.4 million. One of the things, go ahead.
I'm sorry. What are your sources?
What are my
You're
sources?
saying that they're projected to increase. Where are we getting those numbers from?
Mayor, council member Brantner. In terms of the local sales tax, my staff conducts a revenue data model that we look at prior year versus current year, and then we do trend analysis to look out into the future. Some other sources that we've looked at as well are JLBC. I personally haven't looked at the Eller College, but I know that that's been used in the past at U of A. We get our sources from the League of Arizona Cities and Towns, and they have economists who do projections for them for a lot of the state shared stuff. In terms of franchise fees, again, those are based off of our revenue estimates that we do for our utilities, our enterprise funds. As we see an increase in usage and as the rate studies come about, that there might be some change in that, but as what we projected out, there is a slight increase in those as well. With the commodity prices decreasing, we'll see a larger revenue in those funds. And then state shared VLT, that's your fuel tax. Unfortunately, as we get more electric vehicles, that tends to remain flat or decrease in some instances. I'm sorry, the VLT is your license tax. The HERF is a different one. That's your fuel tax. The VLT is your license tax. That typically remains flat, and it has in the past years. Again, that goes off of what we trend. And then our property tax, we get what our property tax assessed valuation is from the county. And so as the county values properties in the city of Safford, we base what we're going to, based off of our rate, what we should get from those.
And you're saying that on our website, you show us quarterly, or you show us all the time what our taxes are actually coming in, and we talked about receiving a quarterly report on it.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, I believe last month I did send you I sent all council the revenue report. And I recall that most of you were able to open it and view it. Again, it's coming to the middle of this month, and you'll probably see another one of those reports. And I encourage you guys, if you have any questions about those revenues, to ask so that I can give clarification.
Well, you still won't tell me what the bed tax is.
Against the law.
Okay,
Sworn to secrecy.
The revenues come in monthly.
monthly, okay, because it's nice to see what you've estimated, what the actuals are, and to keep up with that, because, I mean, it feels better to know that information.
And just by way of information, when we do that so far, when we put the budget together, we do usually conservative budgeting, which means we budget revenues on the lower side, expenditures at full expenditure. And so year over year, we continue to put additional funds into our fund balances. So we try to get it as close as possible because you want to maximize the use of the revenues, the ongoing revenues. But especially as of late, we're putting more money in the fund balance, so the revenues are coming in actually higher than we project, which is really what you want. You don't want to come up short. So,
and also to Mayor, Vice Mayor, to your question of revenue and being able to see it, when we give out the P card and the expenditure over 5,000, there's also an expenditure or a revenue over 5,000 as well. And so that's an opportunity for council to be able to see where we're at with some of those revenues. And again, on those, if you have any questions, staff would be happy to answer if we have the information.
Thank you.
Any other questions? One of the things that was presented last year by Mr. Sweeney was this dollar bill showing exactly where the Graham County, the Stafford resident property tax was going. As you can see, a large portion of that is made up by the Stafford Unified School District and the Eastern Arizona College. The city of Stafford only makes up about 5% of what a city of Stafford resident pays in property tax.
That's a nice dollar bill. Anybody else?
If not, I have one last slide with key dates. So tonight is the tentative budget. If adopted, it will be posted to the city's website tomorrow, as well as posting it in the newspaper. On the, we already had the Truth and Taxation public hearing. On the 10th is the plan on having the final budget adoption, as well as a public hearing on the Truth and Taxation property tax levy. And then on the 24th, we'll adopt the property tax levy if everything stays on schedule. And by the 15th of August is when we will submit the property tax levy to the county treasurer. So that's kind of the upcoming dates if the tentative budget is adopted tonight.
I still, after you're done with all of it, I still felt that the FTE in human resources didn't need to be funded.
Hey, unless there's amendments, I'd like to move that we approve Resolution R24-021, fiscal year 2024-2025 tentative budget. I realize that we might have more discussion or amendments, but I wanted to make an initial.
Just to say that if there are changes, Matthew's not going to make them. You guys have to have that discussion.
Yeah, that's a change I'd like to see.
Okay, we had a motion, and I'll to approve the
Second.
budget, right?
Yeah,
I'll second the motion to approve the budget as.
we're,
And amendments can still be made.
amendments can still be made. I want to make sure they can. I mean, I thought I just did make an amendment that we leave that out, that we do not fund that position in this tentative budget. Isn't that the way it's worded?
Where do we go from here?
So you have a motion on the floor to adopt the budget in a second. And so you can still put forward amendment currently to request an amendment to alter the motion that's on. And again, Bill can jump in, but you can offer an amendment to the motion to remove that position from the budget.
That's the amendment I put forward.
And so someone would have to second that, then you would vote on the amendment, then you would vote on the budget as amended. Otherwise, you go back to the original.
Second?
To remove
The HR specialist position.
our special position. We have a motion and a second. Okay, all in favor?
Do we want to discuss? Is there a discussion necessary for that, or do we want to just
You
vote?
can discuss it.
Yeah, my amendment was my discussion.
We had a second, okay, we had a amendment and a discussion on it. So, and then,
Oh, Mayor,
go ahead.
yeah, I'm not trying to push the issue, but is there an argument?
Should be.
They,
Well-
they, they just brought it up.
No, for the amendment, is there an argument to be made for that, or are we just gonna, we can just vote?
You should be able to have an opening if you have discussion.
You can discuss the
Right.
amendment. I would, right now, the motion on the floor is to amend the budget to remove the HR specialist position. There was a second. So now you can discuss that amendment.
Waiting for discussion.
Right, and that's what I'm asking, is there
I haven't heard any discussion.
I haven't either. I mean, an argument for the amendment.
I think it's just based on what we discussed last time, the need for it.
I just made the motion. I wasn't gonna argue about it.
You've got to represent your position.
Yes, I feel that it's not needed.
Okay? Any,
What are we doing here? Are we doing the motion and then we're dealing with the amended to the?
You are discussing the amendment to remove the HR specialist position from the budget. So there was an amendment to the original motion, and so we're discussing that amendment and whether or not we concur. So there's
I
a motion
guess-
and a second.
I guess I'll flesh it out a little bit. Not needed based on,
I feel it can be taken care of at the current level we have and staffing that we have.
okay,
I mean, I did research to show that the county had twice the amount of employees, and they operate fully functional with barely adding a second one last year, I believe. And when I questioned them and asked how they felt about it, did they feel they needed more? Did they feel they were okay? We talked about turnover, and she said adding the second one was great for her. She was great. She felt like she was in a great position. She didn't feel like a third was really necessary. So that's kind of why I had done research to see who had how many employees, how many HR staff did they have, and why did they feel like they either needed more or less.
Well, I'll just.
I guess, Mayor, I'm sorry, I guess my question would be, we have 5 other positions that are being requested. I realize it's difficult with the utility positions because there's not much to compare those to. Did anybody contact the facility maintenance departments at any other municipalities or the street maintenance departments at any other municipalities to make that same comparison, those positions?
If you drive our street, you'll see why we need more street workers. So I didn't call on those because we definitely need more street workers.
Sir, some of them positions we've planned on from last year to put in this budget coming forward.
Right, and some we didn't.
Yeah.
And it just seems like there's not a consistent scrutiny.
Do we have a part-time person in the HR doing that now? I thought we had a part-time person there now. It's not like we're leaving them empty-handed, I don't think.
No. It's just a matter of, all these positions came through the same process to get to us. And I'm in favor of all of them. That should be pretty clear at this point. I'm certainly not saying that we don't need an extra facility maintenance worker or another street maintenance worker. I just don't, I'm curious that some criteria seem to have been set up and then not applied to all the other positions.
That's mine, Mr. Hempfield, is that we've been awaiting some of these hires to take place.
Right, but again, we're adding a full-time lineman position that we weren't waiting on either.
No, but also the argument with that is we're gonna be taking on more of the construction, more of the stuff that we used to bid out normally a lot
Agreed.
of times. And yes, the answer is-
Agreed, and
I
I-
guess the answer is yes,
and
I did research it.
Right.
Went around, we're hoping that we absorb and not have to go out to bid for every single thing that we've been doing all along. It may not show up right now, but here in a couple of years, especially when we do our substation, we're gonna have to connect the transmission line to come in to feed
Absolutely.
that and go out to Spurs and stuff, and so.
Right, and
That's
again,
my
I'm with you, but just to be clear, that wasn't in a prior budget discussion. It was presented as a need now for that reason, which I'm for. HR also provided a very comprehensive description of their need to us. Ironically, the only presentation that was made to us about their extra position, other than airport. And so it's just curious to me, the scrutiny not being consistently applied.
I think that it has been, though. We've been awaiting some of these positions.
Well, one of the criteria was calling other entities and comparing numbers. And apparently nobody called anybody else's facility maintenance departments or the street.
Well, I'm making my decision on what I've felt the last few years and seen, and was hoping that we would hire these people, and we haven't because we didn't budget for them, and we projected that we were gonna make that attempt this year,
Right.
and this year's here now, and these are the people that were brought forward in the past, and the one you're talking about just came up this time.
As did the lineman.
No, the lineman I had been talking to Mr. Bratz while he was still here.
We haven't, not as a
No.
group and not in a
No,
budget.
not as a
But
group.
again, I'm with you on that decision. That was brought to us now and I'm for it, just as I am with the HR.
Let me make a discussion. I think, we're beating this to death. There's no way you can compare the city of Stafford with all that we deal with the college or with anything like that. We are we're different. We have so many different things, our utilities, it's the list. You can't compare it. I think there's one or maybe two in Arizona that are as involved as this city is. So we need, and she
Just
needs.
as a side note, Mayor and members of council, and again, this was before your arrival, but when we began the budget process last year, or the budget we're in now, and we were looking at our compensation plan, what we did as a group was we decided on a methodology. And that methodology was to compare ourselves to basically a basket, like as from a finance perspective, like when you look at inflation, there's a basket of goods that generally are looked at on a regular basis. We applied that same logic to positions and salaries. So we decided on a group of cities that we compared ourselves to. And then when those instances where we didn't have comparison, because usually there's no small city like us that has all utilities, we then would go to other communities and also through the league. So we did agree as a body that the method by which we would assess personnel and salaries was this group of cities and towns, which then we would go to the league and then to something called the GYM system, which is more based on salary. So we did put a methodology in place to do those comparisons.
And Mayor, just one last point. And I agree with what the manager's saying, because we did do that. But I'm okay with the comparisons that were made for this. I just wish they would have been made more across the board. I'd be more amenable to the amendment had that been done. As is, I'll be voting no on the amendment.
So if there's no further discussion, you vote on the amendment, and then depending on the way the vote goes, you either go back to the original vote and vote on the budget before the amendment, or if the amendment passes, you vote on the budget as amended. So right now, you would vote on the amendment.
Okay, we'll vote on it. Could you repeat? Do you know what it is? The amendment? Could you repeat
The
it?
amendment
I don't know.
is to remove the HR specialist from the current budget as presented.
Then we'll vote on that now. All in favor of the amendment?
Of removing it?
All in favor of approving the amendment to remove the HR specialist?
And opposed?
So the motion failed 4-3.
Correct.
So now you're back to the original motion to adopt the budget with the second. So I believe Councilman Hemphill made the original motion.
Right, unless there's other amendments or other discussion.
Are there,
No,
there's other?
I don't have any, sir.
That was put down. Okay. Now
And
we.
so I'm sorry.
I believe it
so
was-
can we revisit? So Councilman Hemphill made the original motion. It was seconded by
By Mayor Ortega.
Mayor Ortega. So that motion was to adopt the budget as presented, which is now on the
The
table.
tentative budget.
Tentative budget, yes.
Okay. All in favor of adopting the 2024-2025 tentative budget as presented? All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
What was the vote?
It was for 6-1. So 6 are in favor and Councilmember Bratner was opposing.
Thank you. And the only reason I ask is I couldn't tell.
read that.
This completes the approval of Resolution R24-021, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, setting forth a tentative budget and establishing the maximum budget amount for the City of Safford for fiscal year 2024-2025.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Oh, and I'd like to say one thing. Staff, you got to give them the hand for doing such a fine job presenting this budget. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to item number 13. Number 1, ordinance number 024-003, amendment to Title 2 of the City Stafford Municipal Code.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'll be presenting the request for a first reading of Ordinance 024-003, amendments to Title II, Chapter 2.04 of the Stafford Municipal Code to coincide with Arizona Revised Statute 38-431 and the Arizona Open Meeting Law. Background is the staff has reviewed the current city code for the process of the council meetings and discovered that sections of Title II did not coincide with Arizona Open Meeting Law and the revised statutes or contain processes that were currently being practiced. Research was conducted to determine the discrepancies between the Safford Municipal Code and the Arizona Open Meeting Law and the state statutes. Staff identified the sections of Title II, Chapter 2.04 that were needing the update to comply with the Open Meeting Law. The staff is recommending to have the first reading and move forward with approving at the next meeting ordinance 024-003 to implement the changes presented to Title II, Chapter .204. I went ahead and took into consideration what was given as direction at the last meeting when I did the work session, and I am keeping. I'm going to be adding the unfinished business section to the section O of the request for future agenda items, as well as Section B that was being removed in the voting. And then they did a request for it to be changed where I will be reading the outcome of the vote at the meetings coming forward. So I did add that also to that section. As for that, it's time for any questions.
No.
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance O24-003, amendment to Title II of Safford Municipal Code.
Second.
Real quick, it's just for a first reading.
Oh, sorry.
Your motion would be to do the first
reading. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 2, ordinance 024-004. It's the second read.
Mayor Ortega, I need to read the first reading in. This completes the first reading of ordinance number 024-003, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, amending Title II, Chapter 2.04110 work sessions, Sections 2.04.150 order of business, and Section 2.04170 voting to provide procedures for the process of the City Council meetings and coincide with Arizona Revised Statute Title 38, Chapter 3, Article 3.1, public meetings and proceedings.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 2, ordinance number 024-004. It's the second read of amendment to Title 13 of the City of Safford Municipal Code.
Mayor, Council, Troy Bingham, the Finance Director. This finishes up earlier in this meeting. You've passed a resolution on the deposit policy. This goes back to the code section that we started last meeting, where we did the first read on 5 changes that we're proposing to the municipal code about deposits that would conflict with the policy that I've presented earlier in this meeting. These 5 changes include ambiguous language about straw applications, removing language about the commercial deposit requiring interest and the duration, clarifying language that is ambiguous in the code, and at the same time removing a complaint or appeal process that was unclear and not followed in the past. So these 5 changes would now coincide and agree with the deposit policy that you passed earlier in the meeting, and this would finish the process. This would be the second and final read.
So B, do we need an motion for a second read?
Yes.
Okay. I move that we approve ordinance O24-004, second read of amendment to Title 13 of Safford Municipal Code.
Yes.
We have a first and a second to approve ordinance 024-004. 004, the second read. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I will wait, B.
This completes the approval of ordinance number 024-004, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, amending Title 13 Public Services, Section 13.04.20, Application for Service, 13.04.030, Service Deposits and Fees, 13.04.170, Extension Agreements, 13.04.180, Complaints and Appeals, and 13.16.010, Additional Deposits Not Required to update the City of Safford Municipal Code.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Now we'll move on to item number 3, ordinance 024-005, Palmer rezone. Hi, Jamie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff is requesting a first reading of ordinance 024-005, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, rezoning Graham County Assessor's Parcel 10218-063E from CMH Conventional Manufactured Home District to C2 Highway Commercial District. This is in regards to the public hearing that we held earlier this evening. With that, I will stand for questions.
I move we approve ordinance 024.
Councilwoman Gleis, just for a first reading.
I'm reading that part, but it's not there. I move that we, sorry, ordinance 024-005, Palmer rezone. Move that we have a first reading of that.
Second?
We have a motion and a second for the first read of ordinance 024-005, the Palmer rezone. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And Mayor, I know this has been a little bit different, but the affirmative votes on the first read gives us the opportunity to say that it's going to a second read, or if there are any requested amendments on the first read, that they be incorporated. So far, we've had basically, we approve the first read and it moves on to the second, which is what we did now. In some instances, there will be changes, and we would recommend and vote on those changes moving forward.
We'll move on to item number 4.
Did you?
Have to read it.
I know.
What's that?
This completes the first reading of ordinance number 024-005, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, effectuating a map amendment rezoning Graham County Assessor's Parcel number 102-18-063E from City of Safford CMH Conventional Manufactured Home District to C2 Highway Commercial District.
Thank you. Now we'll move to item 14, announcement of current events. I'd just like to mention that over the weekend, the dedication of the airport was fantastic. It was well attended, and it was just a very good experience. It's going to be a great asset to the city. So, good job.
Thank you.
Request for agenda item.
Mayor, I did, in a somewhat unusual fashion, did want to request a work session with the Parks and Rec Committee. There seems to have been some confusion about the application of the policy, the naming policy. We asked them to look into using that policy for our parks. And so I think they've got some ideas that are a little different, and I would like to have them come back and discuss where they are in that process and how they want to apply that naming policy, and kind of bounce some of those ideas off of council before we move forward with an actual naming. So I'd like to put on the second agenda in June, I would like to put that on as a work session with council. So again, usually we just put it on the agenda, but there's been some discussion, there's been some confusion. So I did want to make a request and let you know that we'd be bringing that back to kind of clarify some things regarding the application of that policy.
We'll move on to item 16, report on operational items. Here they come.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I got the whole crew here with me tonight. I have Sergeant Garcia, Officer Schreiner, Officer Palma. So last year we did a Citizens Academy, which was pretty successful for us. So we had some requests and we also wanted to develop something for our teenagers. So tonight they're going to give you the information on it. When it is, it's upcoming first part of June. We do have a pretty good list of candidates that are going to be admitted into the academy. And they're going to go over what it's going to involve, how it's going to go. And like I said, this is for our teenagers. There was a request a while back if we're keeping it within Safford schools. We did have enough interest within the Safford School District to keep it locally. But again, this is going to be our first run at it. So there could be plans for expanding it or maybe running different sessions involving the outside agencies as well. So with that, I'll give you Officer Schreiner.
Mayor, Councilman, Manager John, appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to present tonight. As Chief Avila had spoken earlier about this academy that we're going to be having. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an Officer Schreiner, Safford Police. I'm currently assigned as the SRO for the Safford School District. I was able to present to you guys probably last year about this time over some bullying issues, so it's good to see you again. What we want to open with is, last year we had a Citizen Academy, and that's where the idea originated to have something for the youth. February came around and we started working on putting together something for, as a youth academy, teen academy, if you will. We created the applications, the waivers, actually all the classes in general, curriculum that we will be going over with them. In March of this year, I was able to attend a teen academy as such in Chandler, Arizona, that they put on a few of them throughout the year. It was pretty impressive the way they run theirs, and I was able to bring back some of those ideas to implement them here for us. And that's what we're going to run with on this. So now that school is ending, we're getting ready to go through graduation. First week of June, we're going to have a teen academy. As you can see here, June 3rd through the 7th. It's going to be from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's going to be for a week straight, and we're going to hold it at the Safford Police Department. The qualifications that we all agreed on was you got to be 14 to 18 years old. A grade average must be a C or better. Enrolled in a Safford High School or Mountain Graham High School. With that, I think at the next academy we're going to have, we might even expand to those that live in the Safford area but attend online classes. I had a few parents reach out and ask if that was something that we would do, because some of them are homeschooled and what have you. Some do the online stuff, and what we agreed on was the criteria will be the same as if you're going to Safford High School or Mountain Graham. You got to have the C or better and be in good standing, as well as no criminal history or currently on probation. Okay, and that's what we're going to run with, I believe, for future academies as well. This will be our first academy. We have roughly 15, I believe, candidates, and the letters will be mailed out to them tomorrow, congratulating them for being selected. Some of the topics to include, I'll put my glasses on, not because I need them, but because they look cool. Some of the classes that we will go over in this upcoming academy, introduction to law enforcement. County attorney will have a portion of it, as well as probation. And basically, it'll be an overview of how cases are handled from the time of arrest, as they go through the court system, and are sentenced, which could be sentenced to probation and stuff like that. So we'll go over that. Crime scenes, evidence collection. We'll go over patrol, traffic stops, DUI investigations. There will be a segment there on drug education, prevention. We've reached out. We're going to have a canine presentation as well. There's going to be an area for introduction to firearms safety, a discretionary shoot with scenarios on a computer-based program. Won't be any live fire or anything like that. And there will also be a section on health, nutrition, and dealing with stress of the job. And at the end of the week, we'll be concluding with a graduation. And one of the things for the class, for this first academy is we purchase shirts for all the participants. So on that Friday, when they get their certificate, they'll all get their picture taken. They'll all have the same class shirt. So they can, basically, it's to feel like they're one. And we're hoping that we have a good turnout for the next ones. What we would like to see is perhaps maybe doing more than just one a year. I know when I attended the Chandler Teen Academy, they hold one at the fall break, they hold one spring break, and they also hold one the beginning of summer as well. Hopefully we get the numbers to where we can do that as well. And kind of like as the members from the Boys and Girls Club spoke earlier, the youth is where it's at. Those are the areas that we need to hit hard. We need to be in the schools. We need to plant those seeds with those younger kids, the elementary kids. And that will continue to change things, I believe. I remember, just a side note, I remember when I was a kid in school, Councilman Andazola and Chief Avali will tell you, we remember when they would bring in the McGruff crime dog and they would talk to us about drugs. And that was a positive interaction from police. And that's something we all remember. So those positive interactions, you do remember those. Sometimes the only time you get to deal with juveniles is on the other side of the coin when you have to enforce the law, right? And that's usually a negative, what they perceive as a negative contact. So what we want to do is we want to change that outlook. We want to be in those schools to change minds again, that the police are somebody you can trust, somebody you can look up to, and perhaps something that will push them to want to be in that field. We didn't get a whole lot of applicants, but I believe that word of mouth and how this first one goes, I believe that we'll get there. And we can always come back and present later on down the road to let you know how this first academy went. Well, I appreciate you giving us time tonight to at least explain to you what we have going on with our department.
I sure hope it goes good.
I appreciate it.
Try to get the youth involved in anything we can.
Appreciate that.
Do we get to talk to you? Oh, Chief's up there.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Oh, so everybody that applied is gonna get to go?
In this round, yes, they all met the minimum qualifications to attend the academy.
Good, 'cause there's some people that reached out, but I said, I can't put a plug in for you.
Yeah, we have people that apply. One comes to mind, and obviously we're not going to give any names, but one of the incentives is we had to reject them just based on some past history. I said, we give them an option. If we see basically 6 months, a year of where we don't have any problems involving that person, then we can get them into the academy. So there's an incentive in it for them also.
There was a lot of topics and stuff. I was just thinking of one working with the SRO.
Well,
We'll add that.
Okay.
yeah. So one of the things is, and I'll give these guys credit because they developed a plan. Officer Schreiner did go and see how some programs were run, but they developed it from the ground up. So everything they did is their work and their work only. Usually, so I'll bring you stuff, and I'll be honest, some of it's plagiarized, maybe a little bit, but they developed this from the ground up. They really did, and they did a good job. They had we did recruiting events when we had parent-teacher conferences at the school. We went and we handed out hundreds of flyers so we can get them. Here at our last Spring Fest, we were handing out flyers just to try and get some attention to it and hopefully draw some more candidates for the ones we run in the future.
What about the one that I submitted to you?
We did not get anybody. I'll be honest with you. I think the physical fitness aspect scared them off. We aren't running that in our academy. We're not qualified to do that with the youth. So,
Well, in the future, I'd like to see at least one candidate in that.
okay.
I think that'd be a good program because it keeps the discipline.
Yeah. And that would be, and again, it was kind of a crunch time, we caught it late in the game. I'd like to see the American Legion reach out to us and work in conjunction with us since this is their
I'll make
program.
that.
Yeah, that way we can help them promote it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 17.
I make the motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second that we adjourn. Well, you better raise your hands.
Oh, sorry.
Let's go. Thank you, everybody.